Alright guys, welcome to another video here. I'm getting a couple of private messages and a couple guys on my squad want me to do a video on VOR to VOR navigation, particularly with the FlyJsim 737-200. You can see I have it spooled up here, we're on the runway ready to go, but this video doesn't apply only to the 737. This will apply across the board to any aircraft that you fly, whether it's civilian or military, that has VOR navigation capabilities. This is how you can apply those tools that I'm going to teach you and be able to navigate your aircraft. So we're going to do a short flight today. It's going to be from Phoenix to Tucson, which is just off the map here down there at the bottom. And we're going to fly it via VOR to VOR or Airways. Now, I do have SkyVector. I use SkyVector for flight planning like this, or any other flight planning tool that you're familiar with. The default map here that I'm looking at is pretty decent. I mean, you can see it's got the airways, but the only problem is it doesn't actually tell you what course to tune. So you're going to want to have some type of navigation that you can use. It'll tell you the courses, not just the airways. All right. To get started, let's look at our equipment in the aircraft. We have this baby right here. This is what's called the HSI, heading situational indicator, I think. Wow, that's really sad. I think it's a heading situational indicator, HSI. This is a what we call it's a couple different names. It could be a fixed card ADF, or it could be just a regular VOR pointer. This tool will give you the same data on here, but not as much of it. So this tells us obviously our course and distance. This will show us our course, but not as precise, and we don't get any distance. This is just a direction finder, RMI, radio magnetic indicator. That's the word I was looking for, RMI. We can change it to VOR or ADF as well. Now, if you're unfamiliar with VOR and ADF completely, they're two totally different things. So I'm not going to get into ADF right now. ADF is a very low frequency type of navigation. It's really inaccurate, and it's not used too much anymore other than beacons for outer markers or inner markers or things like that. But if people want to know about it, I can maybe get an aircraft that has ADF navigation. We'll do some ADF nav. I'm actually looking right now. I don't have anything to tune ADF on here as I'm looking at this panel. So I don't even know if I'm capable of doing ADF, which is kind of shocking to me. I would think that this would have ADF. I may be wrong. Oh, here it is. It's up here. It's on the overhead. We can do ADF. That makes sense. But that'll be a different video. We're going to stick with VORs. So, a couple of things I'm going to talk about here. I'm going to zoom in on this HSI. When I talk to the course needle, I'm talking about this needle right here that's moving. And then the heading bug. Now, heading bug, self-explanatory. It's your heading, right? Course needle has a couple of pieces of information on it that are crucial. You have a head of the needle right here and a tail. The head is depicted by an arrow. Then you also have an indicator, a to or from indicator. This is this arrow right here, this solid arrow. Now as you rotate this needle around, you'll notice that the to from arrow always changes, and it always points to the station. Very similar to how this works right here. So if I turn it off, when I turn it on, I've got VOR1, same one here. It's pointing to the station, right? So this indicator will always point to the station. As you rotate around, you can see that it will also become segmented. So your CDI, or your course deviation indicator right here, this line, will deviate left or right, telling you where your course is. So if I want to fly directly to the VOR right now, I've got Phoenix VOR tuned in there, which is 115.6. I've got it tuned in right here. Phoenix VOR, I would fly directly 076 3 miles. The VOR is on the field. Now let's say I wanted to track a different course to that VOR. Let's say I wanted to track 085 to that VOR. This is my course over here, so that means I need to move my airplane from here over here. I would need to fly intercept to the left. And as I got closer to the VOR, it would eventually center up, and then I can fly directly to the VOR. Alright. I hope that makes a little bit of sense. Hopefully it'll make more as we get airborne here. So we're going to navigate this route, Phoenix. We're going to take Victor 105 to Stanfield VOR. So what I like to do is I have Stanfield in the backup. I've got Stanfield VOR as 114.8. I have that tuned in right here, and I am tracking it right now. You can see it's lit up, so I'm tuning it. This is my DME2. I have telling me 33 miles to DME2, which is Stanfield VOR. And I also have this handy tool right here. This is showing me where Stanfield VOR is. So Stanfield VOR is off to my right. Now, because Stanfield VOR and Phoenix VOR are very close together, when we depart, we're going to have to make a sharp right turn to capture this course and proceed towards Stanfield. So looking at my other chart, I know that the airway is 163 degrees. So I'm going to spin in 163 degrees. There's my course. My runway heading is 070. I'm going to take off. I'm going to fly a right turn and intercept my course and head towards the Stanfield VOR. Brakes released, the trim is set. And we're going to make it just so we're not... I'm going to turn the autopilot on when we reach 5,000 feet. We'll level off at 5,000.
Knots. B1, rotate.
Positive rate, you're up. To make this easier on everybody, I'm going to go ahead and get the autopilot engaged right away. Alright, so I am flying my heading. Let's go ahead and put that in the heading. And we want to do speed hold, which we are. Alright, so as we're going to fly past the VOR, you're going to see this course needle start to change. Boom, there it is. We flew past our course, so let's turn right. We're going to intercept it. Now, because we are so close to the VOR, we're only a mile. We literally just flew over the Phoenix VOR, which is right, I think it's right here somewhere. It's right on the departure end of the east side of the airport. This needle is going to be very sensitive, very similar to a glide slope. Not as sensitive as a glide slope or a localizer, but when you're close to it, it gets extremely sensitive. So I'm coming to a right turn. An intercept my course is going to be, if I do a 45-degree intercept, it's heading 210. I can tell that because this end of this CDI deflection, if I bring the heading bug right there, that's a 45-degree angle intercept to my my course. All right, let's bring the thrust back here. Let's go ahead and climb up 10,000 feet. And I want to put this in VOR loc mode to track the VOR, but I want to get the aircraft at least close to on course before I engage the autopilot. So because I'm so close, I know that this needle is going to be pretty sensitive. I'm kind of already cheating a little bit back to the left. So we know we are 6 miles from Phoenix. We know we're from Phoenix because Remember, our arrow in the middle here shows us where the station is, so it's behind us, so we say from. Okay, the needle is coming to center. Let's go ahead and turn this into VOR loc. That means we're going to track either the VOR course or a localizer course. Right now we've got a VOR tune, so it's going to track the navigation VOR. Leveling 10,000 feet. Alright, so if we look at our map, we can see that we've departed Phoenix now, and we've joined Victor 105. Now remember, this chart doesn't tell us the course that we need to fly. I had to use SkyVector or my own charts, whatever chart you want to use that will actually tell you the course number. This is it's what we call an airway. We want to make sure we know what airway course is, and the airway course is 163. Just take my word for it. Alright, now as we're tracking, we know we're going to take this all the way to Stanfield, and then we're going to take Victor 105. We're going to continue on the same airway, so this is Victor 105, through and through, all the way down to Alman intersection. So what I like to do here is I know once I get to Stanfield VOR, I'm going to be tracking outbound, and if I look at my SkyVector, once we cross Stanfield VOR, we need to track the 133 course. So I just looked that up on my chart. So what I'll do over here is I like to put 133 over here. That's my backup, so I don't forget. And now we're tracking. So, as we're flying to Stanfield VOR, I'm going to thrust way back here, we're calling, but we need to change over. Typically the changeover point is about halfway. So right now we're halfway between the two VORs. Phoenix is behind us, Stanfield is in front of us. So what I do is I like to go to heading mode. Now I come down here and I switch over to 114.8. And now look what happened. We've got our needle has flipped in front of us because we're tracking to Stanfield. 163 degrees. And we'd go right back into VOR loc mode. So now we are tracking to Stanfield VOR, and we can see that, oh, this is also telling us the same thing. We are now 13 miles, and now the DMEs will be the same because DME 1 right here, right here, 14.8, is the same as our second nav radio, 14.8. I know I'm going fast, but we got to stay fast because there's a lot happening on this flight. I'm going to try to slow down. Alright, we're 10 miles from Stanfield. What I'm going to do now is I already set up 133 outbound. We're going to follow that outbound when we get to TFD. This is Stanfield VOR. So it's going to be a slight, if I look at the map here, it looks like it's going to be a slight left turn. 9 miles out. Now, something that happens when we're flying VOR to VOR is what's called the cone of confusion. As the aircraft gets closer to the station, the VOR on the ground, the distance may not go to zero because we have what's called slant range air. We have the height of the aircraft, and that height translates to distance to the VOR. So you could be right on top of the VOR, but you could still be a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, depending on how high you are, from the VOR. And what's going to happen is it's called the cone of confusion. As you get really close to the VOR, all the signals that this VOR is sending out get really condensed, and you'll see this deviation needle deflect out to one side, and what you got to do is just maintain your heading, and eventually once you fly over the VOR, the deviation needle will come back to center and your indicator flag will have flipped. So as we fly over Stanfield, we'll see that here. We'll see that here. We're 3 miles. We know we got to go to 133 after that. So I'll cheat even. I like my heading bug here, 133. I know I'm going to turn to 133. So here's 2 miles from the VOR. Here's the cone of confusion. Boom, the needle's flipped. I know I've crossed the VOR. Let's dial in course 133. And if you have the autopilot on, it's going to track 133. This needle has now flipped because we know we've gone over the top of Stanfield VOR and it's behind us. And there we can check on the map, we just flew over it. So now we're flying Victor 105 down to our next waypoint. Now, we're going to let this sync up. We keep the autopilot on, it should fine-tune that, make fine corrections, and intercept and track outbound. Now, if we wanted to, we could force it over in heading mode and do it ourselves, but the airplane is smart enough to know how sensitive the signal, how strong the signal is when we're close to the station, so it'll adjust for that, making very small corrections. Now, where it can get a little bit more complex is when we have an intersection. So right here, we have an intersection, Alman. Alman intersection is defined by two radials. We have a radial coming out from the Tucson VOR, going this direction, and we have the radial 133 that we're flying this direction. Where those two radials meet is Alman intersection. So, first things we need to do is tune in the Tucson VOR, which is 116.0. So, you can either do it with the little hot E button there, or we can just come over here. I already have it dialed in. I'm going to transfer my DME2 over to 116.0. Now you can see here's my DME2 indicator. It's the thick needle. Now it's going to point towards Tucson. And it's telling me I'm 61 miles from Tucson VOR. What we need to do is find out the distance that Alman is from Stanfield. So when I look at my charts, whether you're looking at, again, SkyVector or Air Nav or whatever chart that you are using, there should be a distance associated with the airway. And according to my chart, it says 21 miles from Stanfield, I will get to Alman intersection. So that's method one of determining where Alman is. When this reaches 21, I know that I've flown 21 miles along this airway, and I'm going to be over Alman intersection. What we also want to do is back it up and get this airway going back to Tucson. So when I look at my charts and I see that the airway at a Tucson is on a course of 288. Now, when we talk radials coming out of a VOR, they always go from the VOR. So they shoot out. So 288 out here is Alman. But since we're going to be tracking back in, we need to do the reciprocal of 288. Let me say that again. This airway 105 is course 288 outbound from Tucson. But because we're flying inbound to Tucson, we have to get the reciprocal. Now there's a couple ways we can do that. I'm going to move over here to the FOC. We can look at the chart and we can just or we can look at our HSI and spin in 288 right here, and we look at the tail and we see that it's going to be about, well, what's that, 108? That's one method to do it. Or we can do what I do, and what most pilots do, is the +2 -2 method. So if I want to get a reciprocal 288, I either do +2 -2, or I do -2 +2. I can't go +2 and subtract 2 because I can't have a course of 468. There's only 360 degrees in a circle, right? You can't have 468 degrees unless you're Chuck Norris. So you know you're going to have to subtract 2. So if I subtract 2, that's going to be 0. Now I add 2. 0, 8 is going to 8 + 2 is 10, so we carry the 1. So now we have 108, which is exactly what that shows. So we know we need to track course 108 inbound. I already passed Alman? No, I didn't. Okay, so I was wrong. It wasn't 21 miles. I was looking at my chart here. That's incorrect. I said 21 miles. That does not seem correct. It is... doesn't even show me a distance. Oh, 21 plus 16. There were 2 segments. So it's actually 37 miles. 37 miles, not 21. I was looking at 2 segments. I wonder if it shows it on here. Okay, it does. So there's this segment, which was 16, and then this segment was 21, so 37 or whatever I said it was. Yeah, 16 and 21. So it's going to be 37 miles. And we know that we're going to track the 108 inbound. So as I get close to my DME of 37, I'm going to go ahead and put the heading bug over to 108 as a reminder that when I reach 37 miles, I need to turn left. And we can also back that up. We look here, we've got our course ready to intercept. We're flying a nice intercept angle. And you can verify that with the chart. So this HSI is depicting our intercept of this airway inbound. And this HSI is depicting our current airway outbound. So at 37 miles, we know we've reached Alman intersection and we're going to make a left turn and track towards the Tucson VOR. I also know, as this little another information in this airplane, this is VOR 2, right? So this is the Tucson VOR. As we get closer, this needle is going to be right on 108. It's going to be pointing right at 108. It's mirroring this HSI needle, except it doesn't have any course information. It just has a bearing pointer. It's just telling us where it is. But it mirrors this receiver. Okay, 37. I'm going to go heading mode. Now I'm going to dial in course 108. And we have to change the frequency, which should have dialed in. 116.0. Boom. And here comes the course. Right on time. Put this back into VOR loc. And now we're tracking on the airway inbound to Tucson. And we can verify that right here. We made this nice turn. Looks like we're almost going to crash with this guy. Oh, he's up at 35,000 feet though. He's way up there. Yeah, we don't have to worry about him. Alright. So there's Alman. We just flew past Alman. And now we are tracking inbound to Tucson. Boom. Our distance to Tucson is 31 miles. Once we get close, we'll get vectored by ATC or Air Traffic Control. And then from there. Now, I'm not going to go over the approach or landing anything. I just wanted to get this navigation tutorial out there for you. I know it's a lot of information right off the bat, and it can be confusing, but now that we've pretty much completed the flight, we can recap what we talked about. So we know we have VORs. These VORs shoot off airways, which are courses. When we fly to the airway, we want to make sure we have the arrow, to the VOR, we want to make sure we're flying with our 2 flag in front of us. If we're tracking something behind us, then this arrow will obviously be behind us. So I hope that kind of clears it up a little bit for you on navigating VOR to VOR airways. Now, of course, you don't have to follow airways. In the real world, we do, for the most part, unless we get cleared direct. But you can also navigate just straight VOR to VOR. You can tune in your VOR that you're tracking to, tune in the next VOR that you're going to go to, and then when you start getting distance information and you have your second VOR is in range, you can switch over and start tracking to your next VOR and repeat that step over and over until you eventually get to where you're going. 21 miles out. And remember, the higher you go, the more slant range air you're going to have when you cross over the VOR. So if you're up there cruising at 35,000 feet, you may only get to 3, 4, 5 miles distance before you get the cone of confusion. When you get that cone of confusion, when this needle starts to deviate, don't chase it. Just fly your heading, wait for the to from flag to change directions, and then continue on. Alright, that's pretty much all I got. I'm going to go ahead and get us descending in here for our landing.